It's my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, Dr. David Goskowitz, who serves as Executive Director of Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. David is a recovering academic, where he has spent over 20 years at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, holding both faculty and administrative positions. During his time at the Hart Research Institute, he was a Senior Executive Director, previously held posts as Associate Director of Research Policy and Development, and was the founding endowed chair of socioeconomics. David has also held positions at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as chief economist, and he is actually trained as an economist. In addition to David's economic background, he has interests in water markets and allocations, which are very relevant to our conversations. Today, David supervises Parks and Wildlife and their staff of over 3,000 employees. In the 14 months on the job, I'm happy to report that David has spent at least 3 trips out here to West Texas I know about. I've been able to spend some time with him. He enjoys West Texas, he enjoys deer hunting and chasing quail, and he's helping us with our odd population every once in a while. So please welcome Dr. David Goskowitz to the stage.
Thank you, Lewis. Thank you all for being here today. This is exciting to be in West Texas, to be in Alpine, to be talking about water in the Chihuahuan Desert. I can remember, it was shortly after I'd finished up my graduate work at Texas Tech, there was another conference about water in the Chihuahuan Desert in El Paso, put on by the World Wildlife Federation. Anybody in this room that was at that conference by chance? Anybody ready? There's one person back there. And so this is great that this has kind of come full circle for me to be able to talk about water again now in this position as the Executive Director of Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. I do want to say thank you to Lewis and Vanessa and Sarah for inviting me to be here today. I think y'all oversold it as Keynote. I would just say a note of address to y'all. But I appreciate that opportunity. And I also appreciate what I see happening here at Sul Ross and under President Amanda's leadership and the leadership of the Board of Regents of the state system to elevate the science and research here at the university, at Sul Ross, to be impactful for the region and beyond. And so I've seen a lot of that. You've been involved with that a lot, Lewis, as has Dr. Hernandez, and seen that really come to fruition over just in a short period of time. So this conference, us being here today talking about water and as a kickoff to an area that you all will focus on, I think is tremendous. I also want to thank Alice Best. Alice, if you could raise your hand, please. Alice helped a lot, primarily, on putting this presentation together for you all, and we spent a lot of time thinking about what we could share in the moment in just a handful of minutes about what your department, your Texas Parks and Wildlife Department does around water, and especially in this region. So I want to thank you, Alice. I would also like, for those that are with the department, if you all could raise your hand, put them up. I see you out there. Raise your hand. If I'm going to mess up something that I might say up there, they're going to be able to correct that, and you're going to be able to talk to them about that. And if you have questions about that we may not be able to answer today, reach out to one of our staff members. I know there's a lot of stuff that this talk might bring up and ideas that you might have, and kind of feeding into the rest of the afternoon. I think it's a great segue of what the department in partnerships is doing for the region. So I would go ahead and get started here. Here we go. Here's Texas. And I'm a fact guy. I'm an economist by training. I like to see the numbers. Texas is a water state. Plain and simple. I know it's hard to believe that because a lot of it is we can't see it, but it is a water state. I mean, We have over 1,100 reservoirs. We have 4,000 miles of perennial flowing rivers, 7 major, 16 minor aquifers, 8 major estuaries up and down the coast. We have over 3,300 miles of shoreline along the coast. It is a water state. And if you'll just bear with me for a second, I can't help but do this. Given my training, I do want to share an economic fact with you. And I want you to think about Texas not as a state with a coast, but as a coastal state. And I think, we had Kevin say this earlier on, during the Cretaceous, we had a lot of water here. We had a lot of water here, right? So think about Texas as a coastal state. And think about Texas as a coastal state within the U.S. and all the other coastal states. And if you had to think about we'll call the ocean economy, I'm not going to define it for you, but let's think about everything that revolves around coastal and ocean economic drivers. Where would you think Texas would rank out of those 30-odd coastal and Great Lakes states? Where do you think Texas would rank as a coastal state? Where was that? Number one, you're exactly right. Texas is number one coastal state in the U.S. in terms of gross domestic product, how much output we produce. So, not a state with a coast, we're a coastal state. That's a fact you'll be able to take home today. I want to share with you some of the things that the department is doing now, has done in the past, and then I want to talk about what the future looks like. And everything that your department does is through partnerships. Right? I mean, we can't get the work done without those partnerships, and a lot of those partners are in this room today. So one of the things that around water, and this is talking statewide now, and then we'll kind of dig into the Chihuahuan, is the idea about environmental flows, right? Environmental flows, freshwater inflow, water in rivers and streams that makes its way down to the coast. The department does a lot of that work in terms of helping measure those in-stream flows, ensuring that there's water there, trying to be a driver for voluntary transactions that might deposit some water rights to ensure in-stream flow in the Texas Water Trust. In fact, some of you may know this, there are 2 deposits in the Texas Water Trust right now, Hudspeth County, right, for the Rio Grande. So there's only 3 total deposits in the trust, and 2 of them are out of this region. We also have tools that are available for you all to look at and use, such as our environmental flows information tool when you want to make decisions about inflows. We also work a lot as experts, ex officio members with regional teams, regional and statewide water and flood planning. We're there as a resource, as a science resource. Groundwater conservation. I'm going to be talking a lot today about surface water and what we do on the surface water, but obviously that connection between groundwater and surface water is critical. Talk about that with our springs. That's been brought up already this morning. And we're in the middle of that with all of our partners. Drought preparedness, right? I mean, listen, we have floods and droughts, and it's all in the same 12 months. Right? So we need to prepare for floods, and we need to prepare for droughts. The department science team is there to work with all of you. And much of the work that we do is around connecting stewards of the land, connecting landowners with the conservation opportunities that exist around water on their property, on their landscapes. And the way that we do that, before I jump into the specific issues, is I want to share with you this map, and I have been a little bit, have extended the region to include the Devil's River, right? All right, thank you for that. But this gives you a sense of where your department is, where your Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is, where in this region, and what it's doing in this region. Our state parks, our wildlife management areas, all the work that we're doing up and down the Pecos and the Devil's River, I want to bring to your attention these yellow dots, right? These yellow dots are where our team, the department's team, has access to the rivers and to the creeks through landowners, land stewards that are working with the department that want to help get more science, understand what's happening in those water bodies, what's happening in those rivers. And a lot of what connects the department to the landscape in the properties that we steward is water. You know, the majority of what you see here in terms of wildlife management areas and state parks, there's a water connection. So how do we currently engage with our partners, whether they be non-governmental organizations, whether they be stewards of the land, whether they be academic institutions? And so I want to take you through a few kind of streams. The streams are, the water connects all these, but a few places in which we do that on the landscape. First is wildlife conservation. Understanding what we have on the landscape. We fly a lot, and we're on the ground a lot, as you can see here by the surveys that we do on mule deer, white-tailed deer, pronghorn, right, desert bighorn sheep. And this is not only on the land that the department stewards, this is in cooperation with landowners in the region. And these are region-specific numbers of what we've done. We also assist landowners in the region in making strong conservation decisions moving forward. This middle picture, this middle picture right here, this is after a spike treatment and grasses are starting to come back. And where grasses grow, water starts to flow. Right? Where grasses grow, water starts to flow. So where we can be of benefit to the landowner in helping them convert, that creosote, that brush into grasslands, the department is there and is doing that work. We also do a lot of work on just watersheds in general. And the first part of this is what we call our landowner incentive program. And there's a number of you here in the room today that are part of these programs. And it's really important. And then once again, these are region-specific numbers. We've had 24 projects in this region since 2013 that have taken advantage of that landowner incentive program. It's both public and private funding. There is some match that's required, but almost 80% of the cost of doing conservation landscape work could be borne by this program. And it's impacted over 19,000 acres, 83 acres along creeks and habitat, 24 miles of stream corridors and 4 riparian restoration demonstration. So it is impactful. Now it's not enough. Right? I mean, we're limited by the resources primarily being dollars in which we could put on the ground. But what we have hoped to do, as I'll talk about in a moment, over the coming 5 years is put more resources to this program because it's successful, because it makes an impact. Another important program that the department is stewards is this Texas Farm and Ranch Lands Conservation Program. Once again, not enough resources there, but it is making an impact. And it's there to have voluntary conservation easements on the landscape. And in this region here, since 2016, we've been able to protect over 21,000 acres. And that's impactful. And what we hope to continue to do is grow that program out into the future. With this last legislative session, we were hoping to get a plus up in the funds of $8 million to add to the $2 million that were already in it. It didn't happen. We're hoping to make another run at the legislature again next time to be able to do more of that work in this region as well as across the state. River conservation primarily deals with the impact to the river systems. Our teams are out there. I mean, these are very, especially in this part of the state, in the Chihuahua, in the Trans Pecos, very sensitive river systems. And so we know people use the river to recreate. That's under the purview of your department. And we want to make sure that that level of recreation isn't impactful to the river system, to the riparian zone, to the river itself. And so a lot of the work that our teams are doing with help from landowners that are next to these river bodies is to make sure that we really understand the human impact on those systems as we're using them. And a great example of what we've been able to do is we saw some impact happening in the Devil's River just because of where people that were kayaking or canoeing the Devils. You know, they didn't have a lot of opportunities to be able to pull themselves off the river. So what we were able to do is negotiate with the landowner 2 different leases in which we could have some overnight camping for those individuals that lessened the stress on the ecosystem. So getting that information and working with landowners to find opportunities that is beneficial for all is important to the department's work along the rivers. Now, fisheries management in the region, we've been really fortunate. Once again, as you go back and share that map with you earlier, having a lot of access by our partners, our land stewards, to look at native fish populations. And important for the department is, I'm getting 5 minutes already, okay, important to the department is the pupfish, right? And you've heard a little bit about that this morning. But also what's important in fisheries management and conservation is making recreational opportunities happen. And so we've done a lot of stocking of fish, and in fact over the last handful of years we've stocked over 1 million fish in the region's reservoirs and some of the city and county parks. So where's the department going with these strong partnerships? We just finished our land and water plan for the next 10 years, and this is our strategic plan that guides the department forward. And there's 3 goals that are going to drive our work. The first goal is to practice and encourage and enable science-based stewardship of natural and cultural resources. That's important because the decisions that we make today are about tomorrow. So those decisions need to be strongly science-based. We understand that there could be a political element, there could be other elements that inform that, but it needs to start with the science. And so something that we have just recently stood up at the department is a science council over the entire department that brings all the expertise, whether it be in wildlife or inland fisheries or coastal fisheries or parks, brings that science expertise and leverages that across the department and looks at new ways in which we can access data, create data, look at modifying our best practices in the way we approach science. The second goal is to increase access to and participation in the outdoors. And I don't know if some of you have heard, but the department, Senator Perry was talking about the $1 billion for Senate Bill 28. The department was fortunate enough to Proposition 14 have $1 billion passed for new state park acquisition throughout the entire state. And that's huge. That's huge for, yes, okay, yes. And thank you all for voting for that. That's huge because it's not just for recreational opportunity. What's changed in park systems over the last couple of decades is not only providing recreational opportunity, but providing strong conservation opportunity. And so this $1 billion is going to be able to do both those. And then to recruit, retain, and reactivate those that are wanting to get in the outdoors, to become educated about it and informed. That's another goal of the department. So just a couple of things I want to share with you in terms of what this looks like for the department, for statewide, and then this region in particular. And the first one is, we talked about the Texas Water Trust, we talked about voluntary transactions to protect in-stream flow. And the department, not last session, but the session before that, a bill was passed in order that the department take a stronger role in the Texas Water Trust in making transactions happen. So a goal for the department here over the next 5 years is to help facilitate 8 additional transactions into that Texas Water Trust. We would like to have a few more out of this region. Also, updating the statewide assessment of ecologically significant streams. This is important, and this is for the regional water planning groups. This is really important because those streams that are in need of some attention, having that identified as ecologically important allows conservation dollars to flow there, federal and state dollars. So we're going to be doing a lot more of that work over the next couple of years, and then continue to develop more impact around river restoration and management efforts. I know I'm just down to the last couple of minutes. And a couple of other things I wanted to share with you is, continuing to move out on the partnerships, the relationships with our landowners, with our land stewards that we already have strong relationships with through the landowner incentive program. Driving more resources to that, to the farm and ranch lands conservation program, but being available also when you all have questions, right? And you need that expertise. That's why the department is there, right? And it's connected to the landscape, it's connected to the habitats, it's connected to the wildlife, it's connected to the critters, but that's why we're here, is to be that resource. And the use of the wildlife management areas is really important in terms if we think about grazing practices, the best way in which to get grasslands up and moving again. Our wildlife management areas are test beds for that, and that team is really willing to share all of that expertise with you. So, in closing here, what I'd like to get across to you is that landowners, land stewards, NGOs, county, state, other state agencies are critical for us to deliver on the department's mission, for your department to deliver on its mission. And that has worked really well for us for decades, and we'll continue to build that out. And so if there's one quote I could leave you with is this, and that for conservation to be meaningful, long-lasting, impactful, it must be selfless, right? Because it's not about today, it's about tomorrow. Thank you. I've got 5 minutes.
Maybe one question, 2 questions?
Yes, sir.
My name's Alexander. What is your selling point on, how would you like to sell the point that the Texas Water Trust needs to have some more deposits in it? How does Texas work towards getting more deposits in there?
Okay, so the question, if you all couldn't hear it in the back, how does Texas work? And so everybody work to get more deposits in the Texas Water Trust. Well, I think it's going to take a concerted effort between the landowners, the NGOs, and the department to, one, identify the resources, right, for these voluntary transactions. Identify the resources for those voluntary transactions, and then to steward the landowner, water owner through that process. And so, the department has just reorganized its water program, its water team. And that's just in the early stages, still only about, really a year in. And that's going to be a big part of what they do. I mean, they do a lot of things, but helping steward those potential water transactions is going to be a big part of the work. So from the department side, that's where we're going to lean in. One more?
Yeah,
There's another one? Yes.
I know that the state of Texas more or less known for regulates any flowing stream. Is that part of y'all's work to conserve that water, make sure it keeps flowing?
I think I heard you, sir. It's Texas regulates the rivers and the streams, and then I missed the last part of that. I'm sorry.
Is this in your department to ensure, is this in your department to ensure that the water are protected and flowing, even through private land that may not particularly enjoy your presence?
Well, I thank you for that question. I don't know if you all heard that. So what's the department's role, kind of picking up on the in-stream flow, what's the department's role in helping ensure water's flowing, rivers and streams through private property? I think we all benefit, the private landowner, the stakeholders, the recreational individuals, by having that water in the river and in the stream. So where the department comes in is to, as I just talked about a little bit ago, helping ensure that there is water there for the critters, right? That there is water moving through that land, moving through that property, eventually making its way down to the coast, where it mixes with the salt water and those estuaries become very productive. So the department's role in that is to help ensure that those waters are there for the critters, as well as for, that are in the water and on the landscape. I hope that answers your question. I know we're at time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all.